Freedom is the oxygen of the soul. I need some oxygen out here, son. Good morning, nation. John here. That's a quote from I'm not sure who. I saw it on one of those cheesy motivational posters a while back. Sue me. This morning, we are going to be talking about 15-minute cities. Very quickly, let me say thank you for being here as always. It's appreciated. Thank you for having the courage to hit subscribe. If you're still a little intimidated, little scared to hit subscribe, join us crazies and click that button. Do not let communism win. So on with the show. Let's talk about 15-minute cities, okay? The concept of 15-minute cities was originally spawned in 2016. The dude's name is Carlos Moreno. He is not in with the WEF, the WEF, officially, but they were quick to adopt this model. The UN is also quick to adopt this model. And the project, there are actually, I believe, 40 cities globally, and that number is growing. It started with 20. Believe it or not, it started with 20, and then funding came in from the Clinton Foundation. Not kidding, Google it. And those cities exploded to 40 now. So the idea with a 15-minute city is that you are anchored in your home city, essentially. And you are allowed to travel freely 15 minutes back and forth, okay? So everything that you need, just like a big old super Walmart, baby, everything that you need is right there. Imagine being pitched the idea that everything you need is at Walmart, but hey, son, you can never leave. And if you try and leave Walmart, we're going to tax you. That is essentially what a 15-minute city is. They are split off into sections. You would have a recreation section where your parks and your sports events and stuff were held. You would have a business section. You have a retail shopping section. And then there are different neighborhoods and things. Okay, so you have to, the problem here, it sounds like a utopia. Maybe I guess if you're a fan of Walmart, son, it sounds like a utopia. I don't think it does, but whatever. The issue is not being allowed to move 15 minutes, beyond your own home. Because again, if it takes you 15 minutes to drive through the city and you're not really supposed to leave the city without special permission, or, maybe you get so many times a year that you can leave this whole thing, to me, that's an issue. And again, carbon tax. So this has been proposed already in the United Kingdom, several places. We're going to go over one. One was Oxford, and it's looking like they're going to go ahead and go through with it. But they're doing this. The pros of this, convenience. There's that word again, okay? Convenience. Oh, man. We know anytime you hear that word, it's probably no good. I'm going to level with you, okay? That gets you in, not to get off track here, but that gets you into microwaves. That gets you into sitting on your butt on the internet 24/7. Just convenience is no good. It has ruined society. Greener living and sustainability. So I'm going to argue this one in a second, but they're also saying there's no traffic. So getting back to Oxford for a second, they're saying that in Oxford, downtown, like the nucleus of the city, there's hardly any traffic now anyway. There's one lane here, maybe one lane over here. Most of it is bike traffic and foot traffic at this point. And so they're saying what would happen in the smart cities is if you want to continue to use a vehicle, you're going to have to go around. There's going to be a roadway around. But the issue is every time you pass from this section to this section to this section, you're going to owe X amount in carbon tax. At least that's their plan. And again, that's the pros that they're pitching out there, okay? The cons, and there are plenty, but the cons for a 15-minute city, in my opinion, number one, you're wholly dependent on the city at that point. That's getting away from the fact that you're born into this world. You should have the right to move freely about. Okay, that's my opinion, but hopefully most of y'all agree with that. You're not born into bondage. You're not born into a certain area that you cannot leave without permission. You can get into passports and things, but honestly, I don't like that system either. I'm not over here taking up for that system. You're wholly dependent on the city. So if you can't leave and you have X amount of grocery stores or whatever in the retail sector, and they don't have what you need, you understand the issue. We run into something like another pandemic, or we run into a grid down. You're looking at instant total chaos in a 15-minute city because literally everybody's boxed in and there's just nowhere to go. Another con, in my opinion, is segregation. So just hear what I'm saying, okay? As of right now, if you look at California, all right, LA, Hollywood, they both have their own version of a Skid Row. For those that don't know, they have huge streets that are just lined up with homeless tents everywhere. People that are well off and have quite a bit of money complain. They don't want to see it. They don't want to be around the riffraff. They don't want to be around even people like us, you know, the 9-to-5ers and stuff like that, us jabrones. So in a 15-minute city, I think you would start to see segregation. The rich people are going to congregate with themselves. The working class, they're going to throw you over here in the corner, you know, in your own little quadrant or whatever fancy term they're using. And quite frankly, if you're living below the poverty line, you're going to be over in Section 8 housing. And really, you can't go anywhere unless you're paying a carbon tax. Let me give you a perfect analogy for this. I think it's a good analogy. School choice. All right. So as it stands in most states, all states that I know of, there may be a few that do school choice I'm not aware of. We don't. So without school choice, what happens is if you live in a certain area, you are anchored to a certain school system. There's no getting around it. You can't go 20 miles down the road. You can't drive your children 20 miles down the road to a better off school where they have much better teachers and much better facility. No, your curse is you are poor and you live in this particular area and your kids are suffering for it, okay? That's without school choice. This is really the same issue, the same concept that I'm seeing, because the rich will stay rich in this situation. The poor, unfortunately, they will stay poor. And so you're going to see it segregated out in such a way. And finally, the one that you'll hear about the most, and bringing this up gets you branded as a conspiracy theorist. But I got to be honest with you, I'm okay with wearing that badge because I've been called that for the past 2 years plus, probably 3 years now. Man, we've been right about a lot of stuff. I'm just saying, we have. You know, the theories have went out the window and the conspiracies have become facts. So surveillance and tracking, it's a big deal. Part of the concept of the 15-minute cities is cameras everywhere. I know we have cameras all over the place now, folks, but I'm talking about everywhere. You know, everywhere. Trash cans in these cities would have cameras on them to make sure you are not throwing away food, to make sure that you're drinking all your milkshake. Everywhere. All right, constant surveillance. And because you're wholly dependent on the state, it's not like you can say no. Because you're wholly dependent on the state being the city, in this case, it's not like you can say, I'm going to pass on a cell phone, or I'm going to pass on a special bracelet to get me back and forth, or I'm going to pass on a special, shall we say, a microchip implanted into me. I'm going to pass on that. You will not have the option at this point. If you willingly go into one of these 15-minute cities, you are trading your rights and your ability to be free for convenience. That's what it's all about. You know, convenience. The rich don't want to be bothered by all of us riffraff folks. I mean, it is what it is. They want total control. This ties into ESG, which is a social credit score. And I promise you, it exists. Let me explain the difference, because I get this comment sometimes. I'll bring up ESG, which is a social credit score, and people will say, no, that's in China. It is happening right now in China. It is starting to be implemented in Australia. And people will say, this is the United States. It's illegal. They'll never do it here. Listen, corporate America is already doing it here in the United States. They have figured a workaround out. All right. I'm talking about the WEEF. Again, the WEF, I'm going to start calling them the WEEF to get around the algorithm, but it's already happening. They have figured out that constitutionally speaking, the government cannot force this stuff on you, the ESG, right? But corporate America can, by taking away all of the other options and forcing you to comply. And that's exactly what's happening here in the United States of America. China has a working model right now of the 15-minute city. Go Google it. And what you will find out is you will see these huge military-looking metal gates. Sometimes there are armed guards there. You will see pedestrians walking up to these gates at the end of their neighborhood or quadrant, again, whatever you want to call it. And they will have to stand there for the taking their hat off, the facial recognition. They're like, okay, this is John, son. And then, as long as my ESG lines up, and I'm good, I've been a good trooper within the system, the door's open. And I'm allowed to go to the next quadrant for a certain amount of time. If my ESG score is too low, the doors don't open. I'm essentially a prisoner. And that's what this breaks down to. The concept was introduced in 2016, I think. But 2020, during the pandemic lockdowns, is really when this movement started to get steam. So here's what they fear. All right, when I say they, I'm not trying to be like all vague. When I say they, I'm talking about the people that run the WEEF, the people behind the curtain, if you will, okay? You're ultra billionaires. Most of you that have been here a while know who I'm talking about. They want our world's population to be at 500 million people. The Georgia Guidestones literally said this before they randomly got destroyed. Still don't know what happened. Boo. They just got destroyed, got cleaned up, like they were tearing down a movie set or something. 500 million people. That's all they want on planet Earth. And they are projecting, the UN is projecting, by 2050, the world's population is going to be 9.7 billion. All right? They do not want you having babies. They do not want the population, again, above 500 million. So they have a problem. And here's the problem. They want a prison planet. Meaning, if you look at a prison, if you were to sit down and look at a blueprint of a prison, a literal prison, it's going to look like miniature 15-minute cities jam-packed into one building. All right? You go into a certain pod, that's your quadrant. You're not allowed to leave without permission. You will remain in that quadrant. Why? Because it's easier for them to control you. All right? They don't have enough staff to control all of the prisoners that are there in the wide open. So they have to quadrant you off. They have to quarter you off. And this is what they're trying to do, I believe, personal opinion, with the 15-minute cities. If we reach 9.7 billion people, I don't care how rich somebody is. I don't care how many cameras they've got set up, how many 10 soldiers they've got on staff. They cannot physically control that many people. So how do you, what's a workaround for that? How do you control 9.7 billion people? You convince most of them that's what they want. You introduce a brand new, shiny, convenient idea that's going to improve their life, their living standards. You're going to convince them that they want it, and then they're going to push for their own slavery. That's exactly what's going on. This whole thing makes no sense. They said, getting back to the Oxford study, 93% of the people in Oxford, there were almost 5,000 people that voted, 93% said no, they don't want this. Immediately that thing went away. They quit talking about the poll altogether. They started blacklisting people on social media, calling it a conspiracy theory, the whole 9 yards. But when you get right down to it, it doesn't make sense. They're saying it's a greener city, right? This is going to improve the climate. It's all about the climate. They're bird dogging on the climate, right? They said, well, you can still drive. We're not making driving illegal. You just got to drive on the outside of the city. Same emissions coming out, same everything. You're just going to do it on the outside. How is that making the planet any cleaner? How is that helping, the climate whatsoever? It's not. It's a control mechanism, folks. So that's 15-minute cities right there in about 15 minutes or so here on YouTube. If it sounds like an interesting topic or scary topic, maybe research it. There's tons of information online, lines up the pros and the cons. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Remember, you got to be subscribed to drop a comment here at Prepper Nation. And just to let y'all know, tomorrow morning we are having a live stream. Going to have several guests on, and we are going to talk about rallying America. How can we break the spell that America's under? How can, it's going to be a talk about freedom here in the United States of America. So, you don't want to miss it. Till tomorrow morning. Y'all take care and God bless.